Good day, this is Jolynn from One Heart TV, and I'm here with a friend of mine. We're going to talk about composting. What I have learned through a lot of information lately is Dr. Zach Bush talks about how we could be non-existent in 80 years, and this is a concern for me, and it should be for you too. Why? Because a lot of it goes to our topsoil. We've burned it with glyphosate, Monsanto, such as Roundup on everything in our gardens. And to be honest, this is going to affect us. So I'm here with a very good friend, Donna Johnson. Welcome, Donna.
Hi.
We're going to talk about composting. You've been doing it for quite a few years.
Many, almost 50.
Why did you get involved in it?
My mother passed it on from her generation. They didn't throw anything away. They would put it back into the earth, and it would help fertilize the ground.
Fertilizes the ground. You watched her, basically?
Yes, she gardened the whole time I was a child, and she would always put stuff back into the ground and mulch it in, and like something like a dead flower, and you just throw it in the ground, on the ground, and then it goes back into the ground the way that it's meant to be.
Kind of like us.
Right.
All right, that's another story, but let's get back to composting. We're going to go in your backyard in just a little bit, but I want people to take a look behind us and around us. Look at this garden. Look at this. This is
Lavender.
And then you've got
Geranium, and this is the Seven Sisters rose. It's when it's blooming, it's just covered with roses. The only watering that we do is a little bit, I can talk about that later, but we don't water a lot because we try to choose things that won't take a whole lot of water. And the lavender attracts bees and butterflies, and we need those so much in our environment.
I see a little one right there already. Several.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, you've got a lot of goodies in this yard, but in your backyard, it might be a little noisy, but we're going to give it a shot and see what happens. She's going to show us her compost bin, how you get started, and we'll just see what it looks like. All right. We'll be back.
This is our compost bin. It's an evolution from when we first started composting, when we built our own, but this was a gift from a friend, and it does make it a little easier to compost. So we put all of our household scraps in here, but not meat or dairy or citrus. But anything, you know, when you're cleaning your vegetables, we save it in a little container under the sink, and then we throw it all in here. And then the worms and the sow bugs and the pincher bugs, they all go to work. They're all in here naturally, and they go to work and they they break down the vegetables and things that are in there. And then it turns into this wonderful, rich soil that you can use anywhere in your garden, because it has worm castings in it. And worm castings are the richest fertilizer that you can find.
Now, when you say household waste, what are you talking about? What can you put in there?
Our coffee grounds. Whenever I make a salad, we have all the pieces that you don't want to put in your salad, the waste from the salad. Anything that you cut up, your apples, pears, anything like that you cut up, all the extra pieces that you're not going to eat, you just throw them in a bucket, and then eventually it comes back out here, and then eventually it comes out here, and it's gorgeous, nice. And coffee grounds are a lot. We have a lot of coffee grounds in our yard because we drink a lot of coffee.
Now I've heard that you don't put in citrus or meat. Why?
The meat attracts animals like the raccoons and the possums, and maybe even the dog might try to get in there just to get at the meat. So the meat goes in the garbage. And citrus, it breaks down differently. It takes longer to break down, and the acids in there are probably not very good for the worms. You don't really want to put too many onions because the worms don't really like the onions. They kind of go around them. But I have a walnut tree, and whenever I crack the walnuts, I have the pieces, and I soak them in water and then put them in here, and it breaks down faster if they're a little bit wet.
So you can soak old nuts and
Yes.
put them in there.
Mhm.
That's interesting.
Because it comes out, and you can actually see bits and pieces of it here.
How about eggshells? I've heard eggshells can go in there.
Yes, the eggshells add good calcium to the ground, and it helps mulch. It keeps from the ground being so hard, so it's easier to plant something if the ground isn't really hard. Why go out and buy potting soil? Why pay the garbage company to take away your green waste when you can compost it into the ground and use it?
Grass and leaves and
Yes, you can put grass, leaves. There are a couple of types that we found that actually kill the worms. The privet leaves, one of our bushes in the front yard, we trimmed it, put it in there, and it killed all the worms. So we had to start all over on that one. You just get some more worms and start over, but it was so sad to see them all die. So there are things, yes, that will kill the worms. But my husband and I took a class at Cal Poly in ornamental horticulture, and they told us how important the worms were in the whole ecosystem, that they will eat anything that's rotten, and then when that comes out through their body and comes out in their castings, which is the same as fertilizer, but it's the best, purest fertilizer that you can use. This is our worm farm. We start out putting our compost material in here, just fresh waste from the kitchen, and it starts out here. Well, we do it in both places depending on how much we have, but you can see the rich worms that come from that. They're the ones that break down and eat all of this kitchen waste, and then what comes out is this wonderful rich ground that you can use in any kind of planting. Also, what comes out is what's called worm tea. It comes out this very rich liquid that you can use for house plants or something. It comes out this nice liquid, but we haven't watered it a whole lot, and so it's not doing it.
there seems to be 3 levels in that, and off to your right you have it kind of apart. Can you describe what's in the first tier down here at the bottom, and second, and then the third tier? What's in the first bottom one?
There are holes in this thing, and so the final product is in this bottom one, and it's really good, rich soil. And we put the leaves and the kitchen waste in here, and then they eat it, and then it comes down into here. And if there's a lot of liquid in it, we can actually pour water in here, and it comes out this liquid in here. So it's just different levels of them eating this stuff.
And you have it in the shade because
we don't want them to get too hot. It's been really hot lately, and if they get too hot, it would kind of melt them.
How do you know how many worms to put into the compost bin to get it started?
When we bought it, came with like 100 worms. And so they multiply very fast. And then
just scoop them up and put some in the bin?
Mm-hmm. Yes. We started out, when it's brand new, you have to crumple up some newspaper in the bottom and then you put some newspaper in the bottom of this so it doesn't just run through so quickly. And then eventually the newspaper will break down and it becomes part of the soil. So that's when you start out.
Thank you. So I wanted to get a little shot, Donna, before we end this segment. You've got some milkweed, and that's really important, and you're part of something. Could you explain why the milkweed is so important here in California and really everywhere. And we'll take a look at your soil.
Okay, the monarch butterfly only lays its eggs on the milkweed plant. And so the milkweed is so important for us to have growing in our area because the milkweed monarch population has depleted so much in the past few years because of a lot of growth in the area that takes away from the habitat where the milkweed grows. So we do our part by planting it, and we use our good compost dirt in here, and you see how nice and rich it is, and it's not hard, whereas the ground that is dead is hard like a rock, like cement, but this ground is very rich and fertile, and it's easy to dig in. It's easy to weed, get the weeds out. When the ground is very hard, then the weeds don't pull out very easily. And it accepts the water easily, and we don't have to water a whole lot. We use water from our kitchen sink rather than so much fresh city water. We bring buckets out here and pour it onto the milkweed. And so it all works together with nature rather than using so much of our city water that we're in a drought, So just look how rich the soil is. And then I read something about the orange peels help keep the aphids from growing on the milkweed. And so I put orange peels all around the plants and help. That way you don't have to use pesticides.
So I'm back in her beautiful front yard, and I really appreciate you giving your insights on how to compost, Donna. This has been really enlightening because I'm a beginner composter, and there are things today that I didn't know. But any last words that you'd like to tell anybody?
We never buy fertilizer. We create our own fertilizer. Nature created it, I didn't. But we hardly ever throw anything into the green waste because we put it back into the ground and becomes part of the ground again.
That's the way that we're going to save the planet, y'all. We've got to come together. Look at the bees coming out now, and the sun is out. This is a day for gardening. Get your hands in the soil. It feels so good. All right. Thank you, Donna, for taking your time today.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, y'all. Peace, love. Jolene, I'm out.